Great. Well, thank you, Ellen. Thanks. And first of all, Ellen and Mike and David, thank you for inviting me here. This is stuff I really enjoy doing. And I'm going to talk a little bit about leadership today. Leadership for architecture and then leadership beyond architecture. And the first thing I've learned as a leader is great leaders really understand about what it is that makes people go and why people do it. And I think it's actually the same thing. If great leaders understand that, people think they actually did it. And the first thing you have to do as a leader is you always have to thank people. Because when you thank people, they recognize that you recognize them. And that's really, truly important. So first of all, for Bob and Eric and Mike, for the work that you three do, on behalf of the profession, thank you. You've connected and done great things. So I'm gonna try and do the superhero thing, and would you please tell my wife the whole superhero thing, because I'm really into that, okay? That's gonna be awesome. So let's talk about leadership. So I always get the questions about being the president, and everybody says, how could you possibly be the president? I mean, you had an 8-person firm. I mean, how could you possibly do that? My answer is, how could you possibly not? I mean, it is absolutely the coolest adventure you ever have in your life. Because think about it. You get to go to cool places, you get to meet cool people, you get to do cool things. And it's an opportunity that sometimes opens the door in front of you, and you have a choice in front of you. Do you seize the opportunity, or do you not seize the opportunity? I was very fortunate. I had the chance to seize that opportunity. And you get to touch so many people, and when you do it, and one of the coolest things I had is when you're the president, you've got a fund. It's this discretionary fund. It's got X amount of dollars in it, and you can do whatever you want with it. And so I just tried to make small strategic strikes. I didn't do one big thing or two big things. Yeah, I wish I could use it to play golf or buy new clubs, but that wasn't going to happen. Okay. I did small strategic strikes, and I did a lot of it in the middle of speeches. I'd be somewhere, and somebody had said something about a foundation or a scholarship, and then I'd stop and say, you know what? I'm going to donate $1,000 to your foundation. And I think there was some bus or something here in Illinois, wasn't there, Rick? That I heard about. I heard about a bus. They wanted, students wanted to come to the convention in Denver, my convention I was hosting. And they were having trouble raising money. I heard about it, and I said, okay, how much is it? And so I just said, okay, here's some money, go do it. But you had to tell me about it. And so it's great things like that. But one of the things is about commitment. You have to be committed to it. Every leader has to be committed to what they do. Because if you're not committed, the people that are following you realize that, and everything starts to break down. So what does commitment mean? Well, commitment means that. This is my itinerary. For president-elect year and president year. Those are the cities I visited. There's 75 of them. The ones in red are how many times I went there. You might know Washington, D.C., 38 different times. Pardon? Yeah. Well, sometimes. Chicago's on there a few times. That's because you were also inviting, and I just had to keep coming back. What does this represent? It represents a commitment. I mean, last year as president, I was on the road 257 days. And I'm the principal of an 8-person firm, and I got it. I'm just like you. Okay? I'm out there slugging it out in the economy, in a very tough economy in Florida, and I had to make a payroll every 2 weeks. So it's commitment. It's understanding what you have to do in terms of being a president or being a leader in whatever it is. Now, there's some pretty glamorous places in here. Going to Tokyo twice wasn't bad duty, I got to tell you. That was pretty awesome. But I also had some other interesting trips, like Bismarck, North Dakota. Albuquerque, New Mexico. I even went to Girdwood, Alaska. And I went there because people invited me to come, and it was important for them to be there. So I did a lot of things like this. I talked to people, and that's what made it so special. And that's what it's all about with leadership. Leadership is nothing more than a commitment to excellence. And when you have a commitment to excellence, people will jump on board because people want to be involved with things that are good and done well. That's the easiest part about leadership. As long as you're committed to excellence, you will find that people will have the same interest in you, will dedicate themselves to that. And that's one of the most important things. It's the enthusiasm, it's dedication, it's the commitment to what you do. And even today, you're going to be committed to a little bit because we're going to have some audience participation, and don't worry, you'll know your part when it comes along. Okay? So I've always been criticized a little bit that in my speeches I don't give pictures of architecture. So I'm going to give you pictures of architecture. Okay, just because I think some of these are pretty cool. I don't have to explain what that one is. I don't think I have to explain what that one is. I don't think I have to explain that one, or probably that one. So I have fulfilled my duty that I showed you pictures of architecture. Okay, but why did I show you those 4 pictures of architecture? Because one of the challenges we face in this industry is that's what people see and they think architecture is. That's what the public thinks architecture is. What's our job now? That's amazing art. Each one of those buildings represents a breakthrough in thought, philosophy, technology, engineering, sustainability. All of those things represent that. But you know what? Every day, each one of you goes out and you do the same thing in your communities with the projects that you do. So I like to use this quote. If your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. John Quincy Adams, the 6th president of the United States, said that over 200 years ago. Why is that important? Because the words in there, the action words are dream, learn, do, and become. Those are the words you have to focus on. Dreaming, learning, because everything you do should be a learning experience. Doing something about it, and then becoming somebody who fulfills your dream to do this. So it's always, if you're going to talk about leadership, it's always good to understand what definitions are leadership. So I've always been looking for a good definition of leadership. And there's plenty of them. You can look them up. You know, inspirational leadership, social influence, motivational leadership, you know, creating ways for people to contribute. Collaborative leadership, integrating available resources, maximizing that. I mean, all of these are valid, really good definitions. But sometimes I like to dig a little deeper to definitions. So I dug deep into these definitions. These are real interesting ones. Courage. Look at the words. Engagement. Brave. I like that one. Connect. Multiple people. Garner support. Respect. Taking risks. Collaboration. Keeping a positive attitude. These are really cool. You recognize these, right? You all recognize what these are? You know where these came from? They came from your applications. Word for word off of your applications, these came. Think about that. This is you guys right here. What does this represent? It represents a vision, because if you say leadership to somebody, everybody has a different way to do it. So this is my best definition of leadership right there. Just do it, because that's what leadership's about. It's not a position, it's not a philosophy, it's what you do that makes the biggest difference. And that's what I try and live by on all the things I've done with leadership, because every day we all have to deal with this. Most of you have to deal with 50% of those things before you brush your teeth in the morning. Community, profession, climate, business, accessibility, practice, mentorship, design, health. All of these things are things we deal with every hour of every day in our practice. Because these are so important, because every one of these things affects our community. Oops. But one of the things in leadership we have to remember right here is that no leader is any good unless you have a balance in life. You have to be able to balance your professional life and your career. So Ellen's got her golf clubs in the car. I put my bags in the back, and I'm going like, I just got a new best friend, because I'm a golfer. And look, my wife will tell you right now, the only reason I practice architecture is to support my golf habit. And people ask me, why do you play golf? It takes so long. And I go, exactly. It does. It's 5 hours out there. I got no telephone. I can drink a beer and smoke a cigar. Life is good, because you have to recharge. You have to do the things that make you recharge and make your life fulfilling. And you can't do it unless you have that balance. And let's talk a little bit about knowledge, because that's where leadership comes in. Knowledge is going to be, and is right now, I believe, the currency of the 21st century. We've talked about so long about architects providing services. Wrong answer. What's going on in the world right now and what people are paying for and what people want is knowledge. And we have to look at how do we become the knowledge leaders? How do we take the stuff that Bob is talking about? How do we take the experience of what Eric's doing? How do we look at what Mike has and the things he believes in? And how do we generate that knowledge into value in the marketplace? Because that's where architects go. Because this is the challenge we face, the biggest challenge right now. We are in the middle of a digital revolution. Now, I'm sitting here, and I put a PowerPoint together on an airplane, and I got a mouse in my hand, and let me tell you, this is power, okay? But I will tell you this. In the digital world, I heard somebody describe me as this the other day. In the digital world, I'm a digital tourist, okay? I'm a baby boomer. When I was at the University of Detroit, the only computer I had was Fortran programming. Now, that's scary, okay? You remember? Okay, thank you. That was the answer I was looking for. I was looking for that answer. I'm a digital tourist, okay? I can play around with it, and I can pretend I'm really cool, and I can tweet and do all that kind of stuff. What's going on right now is my children, my kids, they are digital residents. Because what's coming up behind us as we as baby boomers cycle out of leadership, and we cycle out of business leadership and political and community, the generation coming behind us is the first generation, many of you in this room, who have been digital your entire lives. You think digitally, you work digitally, you communicate digitally, and you know what? Unless we are prepared for that, we will be left behind, because if you think the Industrial Revolution changed the world, the digital revolution is going to be even bigger, because it's going to change the way we operate completely in this world, and that's one thing we have to do. Just in the profession, but in how we design. So let's talk about great leaders. This is your first opportunity to participate in this speech. So I'm going to ask a question. No thinking involved. I say the word great leader. Give me a great leader. Go. Anybody? Mandela. Frank Lloyd Wright. Okay, who else? Great leader. Gandhi. Anybody? Martin Luther King. Anybody else? Jack Welch. Okay, here you go. You get the prize, okay? Because you busted my theory right there. You get Mrs. Fisher's potato chips right there. Attaboy, Ryan. Great leaders. I always say this, all right, and you're the first, you're actually, and I can't tell you how many speeches I've done around the country, the first that an architect. Hey, if we're going to be great leaders, we have to think of ourselves as great leaders. I got one guy who said that. I got a room full of architects. No architects. How do we start thinking of ourselves as leaders? That's the next stage we have to go. What is leadership about in our profession? Who are those people that are doing it? And how are we celebrating them? Because this is a story about personality. I think Eric talked a little bit about it, so did Bob. Look at, if you're out there and people perceive you as something, it doesn't matter what you think. If the public or people perceive you as something, you are that. If you're perceived as a leader by the community, guess what? You're a leader. How do I recognize that? So this is one of my favorite pictures. One of the things I do best in life, and some of you in this room know my wife, Diane. She's my leadership mentor. You think I've been busy? This woman is as connected politically in our community, in leadership, and what she does. She's amazing. She goes to Leadership Florida. She's a board member and past president. We go to an annual meeting, Leadership Florida. I go as a spouse. It is great duty. We're at the Boca Raton Resort and Club, right? I'm telling you, this is nice. I'm as a spouse. She's doing all the things. I'm at the pool one night. They're having dinner. I'm sitting around just listening in, because these are people who are business leaders, political leaders, community leaders, amazing people in our state, all sitting around talking, and I get to kind of listen in, and I got to do what I do best, riding her coattails, drinking a martini, smoking a cigar, minding my own business, just listening. Conversation goes to growth management amongst all these people. Suddenly, somebody looks around and they go, hey, Mickey, you're the only architect here. You're the expert. What do you think we should be doing about growth management in Florida? So suddenly, I go from being a spouse, doing what I do best with a martini and cigar in my hand, to being perceived as an expert. Why? Because I'm an architect, and I was there. So the next thing I know, I'm telling them what I think. And the next day I have to take a tour of 25 of Florida's leaders to Meisner Place in Boca Raton and to City Place in West Palm Beach as examples of good urban infill projects that they want to see do for their city. All because I was there and I was perceived as an expert. Perception is reality. So let's talk about some traits. Vision. Traits of leadership is vision. Vision is something every leader has to have because without a vision, you have no direction. You got to know where you're going in order to get there. So one of my favorite being, and of course, I got to throw hockey in. So hockey's going to be in every speech I do, regardless. Okay, so get over it. It's just going to happen. I know you're all Blackhawks fans. Okay, you're from Chicago. I get that. Right? Okay, it's the year of the Lightning, so look out. Anyway, Wayne Gretzky said, "I don't think about where the puck is. I think about where the puck will be." That's why he was the greatest hockey player ever. Because he didn't react in the moment. He reacted in the future. And he thought about where he needed to be and what had to happen in that world. That's what great leaders do. So let's talk about people with vision. Governor Leroy Collins, Jr. Collins was the governor of the great state of Florida from 1956 through 1961. Actually, he came into office because he was a lieutenant governor, and the governor died in office while he was there. What makes Governor Collins a man of vision? 1958, Brown versus Board of Education. This passed as federal law. And it's mandated that states and the school systems within the states have to put into place desegregation of schools. Now, this is Florida. This is 1958. You all know the history of our country. This isn't a popular thing in those states. Governor Collins, the state legislature, at the time decided that they were going to block Brown versus Board of Education, that they weren't going to allow this to happen in their state. It wasn't going to happen. Governor Collins stood up in front of the legislature and he said, "I will not be the governor of any state that does not allow us to be progressive." Because what he knew that if we didn't do this in the state of Florida, that the ability to grow Florida, because people wouldn't come there, because the state we are now that's based on tourism and the commerce we have is directly related to his decision. Now, it was almost unanimous against him as the leader. So what did Governor Collins, as a great leader, as a man of vision, he found this little used clause in the state constitution that allowed him to call an emergency shutdown of the legislature, sent them all home and said, "Don't come back until you're ready to pass." Think about a governor doing that, taking that risk and those overwhelming odds on his political career. And he did it. And you know what happened? They came back and they passed it. Because he stood up for his values and because values are so important in a great leader. Now, lost him in his political career. He tried to run for Congress in 1963 and was soundly defeated, mostly because of people who brought this back up in the state of Florida. But today, he's considered Florida's greatest governor because of his vision, because of what he did, not just with that, but for education in general, of really bringing our state university system in together. His passion, his vision, and his willingness to sacrifice his personal career for values that were important and doing the right thing is a trait of leadership that not many people have, and we have to celebrate people to do it. And all the stories I'll tell you have some personal connotation to me. So, in full disclosure, I would say that Governor Collins is actually the great-grandfather of my son. And I got to spend some time with him before he died, and here's the cool thing. Governor Collins, now this is a great man. Governor Collins said, "You know what? What you do 50 years for our state is more important than anything else we've done in this state in a long time, and the reason is because architects are going to design the way our cities grow. And how our cities grow here in our state, in order to be successful, we have to have the urban density necessary to make this all work. And it's you as an architect going to do that, so we're counting on you." Think about a man like that saying that to me. Pretty powerful stuff. Now let's talk about communication. Communication. I could go on forever about communication because it's so vitally important, because how you speak and how you talk and how you write and how you tweet, how you email is critically important to things you do. As Bob said with that instance where you ain't going to get involved with that email because, nothing can happen. So what we have to do and what we don't do is tell the stories of the importance of architecture. We got really cool people doing really cool things all over the world. You know what we don't do? We don't tell those stories. We don't nearly tell, and that's what repositioning is about. Repositioning is nothing more than telling the stories of architecture in a better way to a larger group of people than we've ever told before. Because everything you do, everything you guys do, every day touches everybody's life in some way. Nobody can walk out of their house on any day that they live and walk down the street or get in their car and go somewhere and touch something that hasn't had the involvement of an architect in some way, shape, or form. So this is a story of communication. Here's another very important thing about leadership. You never know who you're talking to. Think about that. So my practice, I do a lot of interior architecture. And I've got big projects and I got small projects. There's a lady in Tampa, Sherry Troped, and Sherry was not blessed like a lot of us. She wasn't blessed with good health. She wasn't blessed with a lot of means in terms of her social aspect. But she's somebody I knew. She had worked for a firm. She decided to start her own little PR firm. 800 square feet in this building that I designed. And so she came to me and said, can you design me a space? I got 800 feet. And I go, I'm your guy. What can you do with 800 feet? It's not a lot. So, gets an office, a little reception area, desk for her assistant, a place for the coffee pot and the copier, and kind of mold it all out, helped her pick out a little couch and stuff. And she didn't have much money, so okay, I get it. So we get the space done. I go up there when she's moving and just check her out. She's in her office, and I say, hey, Sherry, how are you? She turns around, she's crying. Okay? Now, architecture school did not prepare me to go into a client that's crying. I do not have this skill set, okay? So I said, what's wrong? Oh my God, what's wrong? She goes, there's nothing wrong. She goes, you don't understand. It's the happiest day of my life. I dreamed my whole life to do this, and now it's real, and you helped me make it happen. You designed the space for me, and this is everything I could have hoped for and more. 800 square feet. Okay, so think about it. It's not always the grandiose and the great things and the stuff we get published on the pages, because what you do every day changes people's lives. 800 square feet changed your lives. So I need you to do something for me, okay? Everybody, this is audience participation again, okay? Everybody do this. And it's not going to hurt, I promise. So try it, okay? Everybody, take your hands and go just like that. So everybody, let's do it. All right. I had to tell you what, this is so going out on Twitter. Just hold on right there. Okay, I may be a digital visitor, but I tell you what, I know how to use a camera. Okay, so AIA Illinois Leadership-Institute. Yeah, check it in about an hour and a half. What is that? What did I just ask you to do? Why is that so? Yeah, sort of, kind of. That's what it is. It's 1 square foot. Okay, so what did I learn from Sherry Troped about 1 square foot? I learned that it's an architect. Everybody has square feet. Everybody's square foot is exactly the same. It's 12 inches by 12 inches. Doesn't matter if you got 800 of them or 800,000 of them. Our to treat everybody's square foot exactly the same. So fast forward. I'm going after an 80,000 square foot high-end law firm project. Big presentation. We go in there. They got their board of directors. We're fired up. Room, look around. Who's sitting there? Board of directors, big law firm. Yeah, you guessed it, Sherry Troped. Do our presentation, go back 2 hours later, we got the project. Holy cow. Walking down the next day, I run into Sherry. She's all excited. She comes up, she goes, oh, I'm so thrilled that you got this project. I got to tell you something. She goes, you guys left. I stood up in a room full of those lawyers, and I said, you know what? If Mickey puts in half the effort on your space that he did for mine, you'll have the best space there is in the city of Tampa. And think about it. I got 800 crappy square feet, and you got 80,000 of them. You never know who you're talking to, because you never know where that person will pop up and the influence they may have, and what you do and how you act and how you treat them will be remembered. Collaboration, another word. Any leader has to have collaborative abilities because collaboration is the key to getting anything done because you have to do it with people. So Millard Fuller said, trust is achieved through participation and collaboration. He actually said that in a speech at the AIA National Convention. I wrote that down very quickly, and he didn't. Now, you all know who Millard Fuller is, right? Okay. He is the founder of Habitat for Humanity. That's him right there. He died a couple years ago. I got to meet him when he was at the convention. Brilliant. So why is he so important? Think about what he did. He founded Habitat for Humanity, sitting in a garage with 4 other people, and said, gee, we want to start something where we want to build 1 million homes for a period of time for underprivileged people. So guess what? They put a model in place just a couple years ago. You know what they did? They built their 1,000,000th home worldwide. So Habitat for Humanity, for those you don't know, is the largest single-family home builder in the world, all done with volunteers. This is a company that's built on love. It's built on passion and people's commitment to do something good for somebody else that doesn't have the means to do it. The largest single-family home builder in the world with volunteers, all on collaboration. The power of collaboration and the power of being able to lead people and give them a means by which they can involve themselves in something they're passionate about, it is one of the keys to success. And that's what made Millard such a wonderful leader. And then there's inspiration. Just as the quote said, great leaders have the ability to inspire people, and you're inspired by things that happen in your life every day. I'm inspired by Dr. Richard Jackson. You know him real well, Mike. Dr. Jackson I met as a board, he was our public member on the National Board of Directors on the first year I was on the board. He's a pediatrician from UCLA in California. He used to be second in command at the Center for Disease Control in Atlanta. Dr. Jackson, his research is all about how design can affect public health, and in particular, how it has a direct effect on incidence of childhood obesity. So Dr. Jackson believes that whatever we do in design, if we do it the right way, if we redesign our communities the right way, we can virtually eradicate childhood obesity. Now, think about that. Think about the impact of that. Think about the healthcare costs alone. Think about productivity of a lifetime. Think about how it affects families. Think about how it affects an individual and their ability to chase their dreams. Because in order to be a sustainable society, we have to be a healthy society. It is very difficult to attain happiness if you don't have health. It's very, very difficult. What we can do is create healthier environments. That is one of the most important things about sustainability. And the other thing Dr. Jackson taught me was the cause of the cause. Here's a story about that. The cause of the cause. When you think about that, okay? So, here's a street. Pick a city. I bet you got them here in Illinois, just like that. I think I drove on one last night. Okay? So, Atlanta. A busy street like this. There's no sidewalks. There's no public transportation. There's no safe crosswalks. You can see the death one right there. A woman who lives in the neighborhood, lives in a low-income housing community, had to walk to the grocery store because there's no public transportation to get there. She's walking back. It's raining out. There's poor visibility. She's carrying her grocery bags. It's just like this. There's no sidewalk. It's grassy. It's slippery. She's walking. She slips. She falls into the lane of traffic. She's hit by a car, and she's killed. True story. On the police report, the cause of death is listed as trauma by collision with a motor vehicle. But the cause of that death is bad design. Political community didn't care. A professional community that didn't rise up and say, we need to fix these kinds of issues. This happens all over our country. And one of our responsibilities as leaders is to look in our own communities and figure out places where we can make a simple difference. What a sidewalk would have saved a life. And the question I ask everybody in this country is, nobody should have to die because we didn't go out and make an passionately to make our communities safer for the people who live in our communities. And that's our job and that's our role. And that's why when we see situations, we have to think beyond the cause of things and really look at what the cause of situations are. So vision, communication, collaboration, inspiration, 4 real important things of many things that are important in leadership. But they also go back to the quote, dream, learn, do, and become. Because those are the action words that support the visionary words we have to do to make it all work. So we're back to leadership. You know, leadership is so important on anything you do, and you have to remember, as it's been said before, leadership isn't position. Leadership is an ideal. It's a way of life. And the question I ask is, where do you fit in? You're all here today, and you had an interesting exercise you're going to keep going on earlier on. Is where do you fit? Where do you see yourself fit in, and how does it do that? Well, there's lots of opportunities, because each and every one of you is an everyday leader already. You may not know it, you may not realize it, but I guarantee you, somewhere in your life, every day, you run into somebody, you interact with somebody, and they walk away, and you have influenced their life in some way. It may be your neighbor. It may be an intern in your office. It may be the woman in the grocery store in the checkout line. It could be anybody, anywhere, but you influence somebody every day. You're an everyday leader in how you speak, how you talk, how you act, and how you treat people is critically important to being seen as a leader in your community, because people respect other people that respect them back. And that's the neatest thing is when you respect everybody, you automatically become a leader, because that's the most in what you do and for what you believe in. Because, remember that? We all got to deal with those things every day. That's why it's so important, because every day you're a leader in one of those things. You're moving forward and trying to deal with these issues, and that's our goal as an architect. That's what we are tasked with our communities to be responsible for, because our communities rely on us to do this the right way. And then there's the AIA, this little organization of 83,000 members right now. And being the president of it's really cool. We got 83,000 members, and I can guarantee you each one of them has an opinion. And and most of them knew my email address, and a lot of them weren't afraid to express their opinions to me. So it's always a challenge, because what the AIA does is we facilitate the interests of our members. That's what the base opportunity for the AIA is. So think about this. We got 83,000 members. Those are people that have 83,000 different interests, potentially. Think about if somebody did one thing for the AIA every year that was of their interest. That's 83,000 things we could get, of points of touch to our community. That penetrates the marketplace pretty deep. How do we get that out there, and how do we do it? That's our job as a leader. How do we inspire people to chase those interests? Well, there's one way, doing citizen architect. There's lots of examples of citizen architect. This is our formal program. We're looking at ways for people to get involved in civic leadership. I spoke about the whole mayor thing. That wasn't my idea. That stemmed from a speech I did about 2 months ago in Tampa in front of our business community at the Tampa Downtown Partnership annual meeting. I was asked to be the keynote speaker. I was the first actual keynote speaker from our own city to do the speech, which was kind of bizarre, I thought. But after I did the speech, I got a call from somebody in the community, one of our leaders, CEO of the Florida Aquarium of Political Leaders, said, hey, crusty old guy, Tom. I was at the speech, because I already talked to 5 people. He says, we decided you're running for mayor. Like, what? Yeah, I'm serious. He goes, you said the stuff you needed to say. All I did was I stood up there, you know what I did? I talked about the future of the city. I talked about being positive, and I gave examples of what our city can do based on my travels around the world. I gave them 5 examples. It's like nobody said that out loud before, and you kind of go, really? That's all it takes. Be a visionary. Don't be afraid to say those things out loud. But when you say them, you have to say them in a positive way, because every time you talk about architecture, you're engaging in advocacy. When you're at that cocktail party and you're talking to somebody, you got a drink in your hand, If you start moaning and groaning about architecture, guess what they walk away with? Like, oh, God, that must be horrible to be an architect. Listen to them talk. Every time you talk, you need to be positive. You need to talk about what is so important in our lives and what architecture does, because it's up to us. Remember that? Tell our stories about how architecture makes a difference. And you told some of my thunder of the story. You're at a cocktail party. You say, what do? I'm an architect. Somebody goes, I always wanted to be an architect. God, it must be great to be an architect. So I always ask people this. Think about the power of that. How many times have you been to a cocktail party, you're in a conversation, and somebody introduces themselves as an accountant, and somebody says, oh my God, an accountant. I've always wanted to be an accountant. I mean, God, I dream about doing tax returns. I mean, think about it. How many times does that happen? Because what we do is really cool. I tell kids, when I talk to kids, you know what the greatest thing about being an architect is? I get to use my imagination every day. Wow. That is so powerful. That is so cool. Because this is what we have to do. That's our challenge in repositioning and what we do in the AIA and what your challenge is every day when you're out there, when you talk about architecture. We elevate the public awareness of the importance of architecture. We're advocates for the profession. What we say, what we do is so important. And we create and expand the sharing of knowledge for a prosperous future, because knowledge is what people are seeking right now, and that's what the marketplace. And the other thing we have to do is adapt to change. Remember that digital revolution thing? Adapting to change is so critically important. And boy, are we doing it in the AIA. For those of you who are at the convention, we changed our governance structure. We changed it into an operational side that's small and a strategic side that's really big. And it was hard to do. There was a lot of people that came out of that kicking and screaming. But you know what? We're ready to do it, because we're at a critical point right now with the economy changing and the way things are happening out there. Architects, if we do the right things the right way, we can be the leaders that are going to take this economy up to where it's never been before. But it's not easy to do. Some guy named Mike Waldinger gave me a T-shirt that said, a great T-shirt that said, if you want to make enemies, just try to change something. Boy, did I learn that last year. Oh my goodness gracious. But it's true, because part of the responsibility and part of the burden of leadership is making difficult choices and difficult decisions. Because we have to be proactive, not reactive. And our institute, our profession, has been reactive too much. And it's time to be proactive and drive the strategy that's out there and drive the kinds of things that happen in our community that make it better. And we can do that, and all it takes is standing up and deciding that you can make a difference, because people are looking for somebody who's willing to say that. So that same guy, Mike Waldinger, said this, and this is another thing. He said this on a telephone call. We were on a conference call. He said this, and I'm furiously writing this down because it's one of the most brilliant things. Leadership is about people who see the world as a place to engage in rather than withdraw from, and their careers as a means to invest in communities and not just extract paychecks. Bam! That's what we're talking about. Well said. Not bad. Could have had a couple more $5 words in there, but other than that, it's okay. Think about the power of that. He's exactly right. It's about what we do and how we do it. It's about being passionate, making decisions that you're willing to make that commitment necessary. So when I sat down with that quote, or the headline I told you about, we did that with my wife. Like I said, my wife, my partners, my family. This whole mayor thing is out there. We had to make a decision. We had to make a decision in my business. I had to make a career decision, and I had to make a family decision. Are we willing to make the sacrifices necessary to make this choice to go down this path? And that's the decision you make. What is it worth to you in terms of the decisions you make? It's not always easy. Trust me, it's not always easy. It's very hard. But it's so worthwhile. That's what the key to all of this is. So back to leadership. I always go back to leadership. I believe that leadership is the number one important thing we have to really look at, how we position architects better. And this group here, congratulations, because this is fabulous, Mike. Guys, Ellen, this is incredible. Because what you're doing here is you're taking architects and you're identifying people and you're giving them the opportunity to get engaged and make the choice to be engaged. And that's what we don't do enough of. We don't identify people that have the potential in leadership positions. We don't position them properly. We don't support them, and we don't get them out there and put them in the places they need to be in order to make that happen. You know, we were talking, Bob and I were talking, we were talking about how United States Congress, okay, it's your chance. Some of you probably know this. United States Congress. How many architects have served in the United States Congress since 1900? Any guesses? You don't count. You're eliminated. Yeah, I see it. Since 1900, so we're 1 for 114. So if we're on the Cubs and you got one hit in 114, I guess that's not unrealistic for the Cubs, is it? If you were 1 for 114, that would be considered somewhat underperforming. Think about that. One architect serving in the United States Congress since 1900. What are we doing? So that's what's so important. Leadership is in a position. It has to be a lifelong habit. I cycled out of the AIA presidency, and my decision is, where do I go next? What am I doing? How do I continue to be an influence in my community? How do I continue to use my skill sets and resources and thoughts to make a difference? Because we all have to continue to do that, and that's what builds communities. When we're out there colliding, and it's this new word I got, making collisions for people. That's what urban design, that's what density is about, and that's what leadership is about. It's creating opportunities for people to collide and share their ideas and share their thoughts. And colliding in places that they normally wouldn't collide in. And that's our challenge of how we do that. How do we get our emerging professionals to think about what it is that you guys need to do that's of interest to you? Because we're back to facilitating your interest with the AIA. You can take that on. It's not what the program the AIA puts together. It's what can you do to start a program and make something work with the interest you have. And it doesn't have to be big. It can be very simple. But you have to remember, sometimes it's the smallest of things that make the greatest impact.